Speaking freedom, giving you the answers to be free. Be free.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's performance is about to begin.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Speaking Freedom TV's Journey to Freedom show. Today, as your host, Dr. Kaci, we have a special guest, Diane Hill, but we're going to call her Di. Hey, Di, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Di Hill. I am a women's transformational coach. I'm an abundance strategist. I'm a vision boarding expert, energy healer, and best-selling author. And I'm super, super excited to be here and talk to you about a journey to freedom. It's what courses through my veins. So thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. So you are located where specifically?
Well, you can hear I'm British, but I actually live in Cape Town, South Africa, and I've lived here for 14 years. So I'm down right in the Southern Hemisphere.
Yes. How did you get to Cape Town?
So it's a long time ago now, but my husband was working for a big international recruitment firm. And so we had the opportunity to come out here, and I didn't want to, had all my friends, and we agreed for 2 years, and then 2 years turns into 5 years, and 5 years turns into 10 years. And it's just, an amazing place to live. Obviously, you know, everywhere has its ups and downs, but in terms of a lifestyle and, you know, I'm very, very lucky. I live 5 minutes walk from the beach, and if I want to go on the mountain, it's 5 minutes the other way. So I have beach, mountain, a beautiful city, beautiful vibe, amazing food. It's a heady mixture of Africa, America, and Europe. That's how I've always said Cape Town is.
Oh man, I've never been to South Africa before as of yet, but I do plan to visit. And when I come, I'm looking you up, Dad.
You are so good. Yeah, don't worry, I'll still be here. I go back to the UK now and again, but I'll still be here. This is home. It's so, our home.
How did you feel transitioning from a 2-year agreement to 14 years? Like, what was that like?
I think that was pretty unconscious, to be honest with you. It was definitely driven by my husband's plans, and you do get these trading wives all over the world. But I think what cemented it was having my second child here. So when we moved over, my eldest child was 18 months old, and then I think then having another child, having a bit more of a sense of community, a bit of connection with other people. And I think that is kind of when we knew that we were going to stay here longer. And then I went on to have a third child, and we are, you know, completely entrenched. So
I lived in a place here in America called Phoenix, Arizona. I don't know if you've heard of it. I'm not going to act like you have. But
no, I have heard, don't worry.
When I lived there, I went when I was pregnant with my older son. And the sense of community that I felt there was like no other place that I've lived. And I've lived in Korea. I was in Iraq for a little bit because of the military, Kansas, Ohio, like nowhere else has been like that. I mean, as soon as I came, they was bringing me dishes and food. And then they had a baby shower, and I was just like, I'm a black girl, and these are not black people, and the non-black people treat me better than the black people that I know. And it was a revolutionary experience. Like, I approach every situation now with the new perspective of community, even if you don't know the person. So when I moved into my current house, I was giving people cookies when they moved in. I'm baking cookies and stuff.
Like I'm going to pay it forward, because
that's what I experienced.
Absolutely.
Now, that has not been the return effort, but it was the experience that really changed my life, and it helped me grow as a person, because I understand different people from different backgrounds come with a different perspective and a different acceptance even. So I know that your friend recommended you to come to the show. What made you decide to want to be on the show?
So the honest truth is that I want to teach everybody how to live from their truth and from their authenticity, and so they can create the freedom that ultimately we're all searching for. So I'm very, very passionate about sharing sort of the how to, but probably more the why to doing it, because it brings that happiness and joy and the love that we're all seeking. But also, I just love connecting with people. So I am a firm believer of when I sort of tune into myself, if something feels good, I'm going to say yes to it. And I live my life from that place, and life allows me to flow in a very happy, joyous, easy way because I feel into it. I'm like, oh, I'd love to do this. So I really enjoy doing podcasts. I love connecting with people all over the world. And something I always think, which is amazing given the world that we live in, is that it doesn't matter whether you need to be physically close to people to feel that connection. It's about connecting energetically and being on the same wavelength. So I love meeting people all over the world. So that is why I'm here.
So how did you go from making decisions from your mind to making decisions with your soul?
Okay. So my spiritual journey really started around about 2017. On the outside, and I talk about it a lot in my book, on the outside, you would never have known anything was wrong. Okay. I presented, nice house, car, 2.4 children, everything's fine, but on the inside, I felt this massive disconnect, and I kind of ignored this heaviness in my gut the whole time. And I just kind of took life to be normal, but I couldn't ignore this kind of gnawing away at me. And I had the opportunity to go back to the UK and have a week with a friend there and really kind of do my own thing for a bit. And suddenly this old version of me came to the surface again. And I had this incredible week where Di kind of came alive again. And then before you knew it, I was back here, and that week seemed like a dream, and that was it. And I was back to my old ways. And, a bit of, I'll be honest with you, I was resentful, I was angry inside, but I kept it all in. But of course, when we don't allow ourselves to really truly feel our feelings, we're very reactive, we get triggered very easily, and it's not a great space to be in. Fast forward a year, I have a very close friend that moved back to New York. And so she said, come to New York. I've been a couple of times. It's one of my favorite places in the world. Come to New York, spend a week with me. I was like, absolutely. And so what happened next can only be described as totally out of my control. It was totally the universe, source, God, whatever you want to call it, intervening. And my name isn't a particularly common name. I guess it may be more so like in a slightly older generation, but you don't meet many people called Diane. And I heard my name in various guises 7 times in 24 hours, to the point when I'd heard it the 6th time, and it was like coming up in books, in movies, in like, I overheard a conversation on the train into Manhattan. Someone was like helping her friend deal with a relationship. She's going, I'm so sorry, Diane, you should do this. And I was like, this is getting ridiculous. And I actually phoned my coach. I was like, I'm actually getting scared. I keep hearing my name and I don't know what to do. I never hear my name. And so for a long time, I'd been putting off going down to the Twin Towers Memorial site. I didn't want to go because I knew that it would, because I'm a very emotional person.
As an intuitive, so I can only imagine. Yes, because I went to, when they had the Martin Luther King Center here, and it had all of the artifacts from the 60s and 70s and the 50s. The first time I remember going there, when I moved to Atlanta, I just was weeping and crying, and this was before I knew about being an empath, before I knew anything about intuition.
What is going on?
I'm just like, oh my God. And I'm thinking like, girl,
like, why am I feeling this on such a, like, it's on such a level?
Strong. So,
which is amazing, because then you're like, I've got a soul.
Right. And it's crazy because it makes me also think about when I first came back from Iraq, and I could hear loud noises, even going to the movies and seeing shooting and hearing it was very like, and I was like, girl, like, I'm telling myself, like, you are safe. You are in a place with other people. This is not your reality.
Subconscious is telling you on a whole other level. Hey?
Oh gosh. And it was like I could feel everything so deeply. So I can only imagine what that would have been like for you. So how was that?
So I decided to walk. I don't know how many blocks it was. I was in absolute heaven. So I got off the station and just went, I'm walking and walking and walking and walking. And I got down there and I was like, oh gosh. And, it's a very morose, obviously, sad but respectful energy there. And there was lots and lots of people around the two plinths. And I pushed my way to one of the plinths, not really knowing what I was going to see. But then I saw all the names, elegantly carved of all the people that died that day. And so I think it was close to 3,000 people. It was like 299 something. And I pushed my way to the front, and there in front of me was the name Diane T. Singer and her unborn child. And I kind of stumbled. I was like, oh, nothing to do with like my name, just like such sadness overwhelmed me at what she must have experienced and what she went through that day. And so I stumbled off, kind of pushed my way out, I was visibly upset. And I was walking along, and I suddenly went, oh my gosh, I've heard my name again. And so I kind of sorted myself out, took a big sniff, as I'm doing now, got the train to Brooklyn, had a nice sort of walk around. And as I walked across the Brooklyn Bridge, I literally stood there and I looked up, and I can remember exactly where I stood. I was sort of fighting the souvenir sellers and everything. I stood there and I went, I don't know who is talking to me. I don't know what's going on, but I'm listening. I said, right, fine. Because I think the noise of my normal day-to-day life had just gone. So the airways were kind of clear. And there I was in a place, I was more like I was able to hear what was going on. And so I made up my mind that day that if I didn't live my purpose, if I didn't find my truth, if I didn't live from freedom for myself, I would damn well do it for my departed namesake. And that's what pushed me on. So that is when I came from, that's my spiritual journey from going, I'm not going to think from this place anymore. I'm not going to think from programming and nonsense and perception and who I think I should be, because that's creating misery. Instead, I'm going to go in here. I'm going to live my life from truth. And little and unbeknown to me at that present moment in time was that I was going to go and teach other people exactly how to do that as well.
Man,
so that's the story.
That is phenomenal. And it's so crazy because when you think about the universe speaking, and like the universe, God, the creation of all, will really, really speak to you if you're open to hear it, because it's speaking
100%.
Regardless. And it's speaking regardless, but if you're not tuning in to hear it, then even what it's saying, you won't be able to receive.
You can't hear it. It's literally like you're like two wavelengths. They're saying one thing and you're down here. You've got to get that frequency back up so you can actually hear it. And that's absolutely what happened to me when I was in New York, because I didn't have the day-to-day noise, busyness of my life. So I was able just to like, oh, okay. And
notice
so it was
things.
an absolute, it was a line in the sand moment that has just absolutely changed my life. So, and that kind of really was, life before then and life after.
So how has life been in comparison? Before, what was it like? After, like, what has it been like?
Well, I'll be very honest. It wasn't all like rainbows and butterflies. As soon as I came back and I was like, right, I'm living for my truth. Suddenly, there was disagreements, and you might lose a few friends along the way. But you've got to really, it's boundary setting and really feeling safe to step into your power of who you really are. And it's going to create waves with people. It's going to, it definitely cause like disagreements. Let's put it like disagreements between my husband and I. Was like, no, I'm doing this, and I am going to start meditating. I am going to start doing these courses, and I am going to start making decisions from what feels good for me, which might be different to what other people think I should be doing. So it's quite that it's a leap to being able to go, right, I am going to live like this. It's not necessarily easy. But what I did is, so that was September 2018. And so throughout 2019, I then started taking very aligned action. I'm very much, when it takes me a while to make a decision, but wow, once I make a decision, I am in.
Right.
Like I am everything. And I really, give it my all. And so throughout 2019, I hired a coach of my own. And I was still very much sort of flip-flopping around what I thought would make me happy. I'm also a nutritional therapist by trade, previously. And I thought, oh, maybe I should do writing. I love writing. Maybe I should write loads of blogs and write for, magazines about health. But nothing was ticking my box at all, nothing.
Right.
And then, so that was kind of 2019. But I was definitely kind of just quietening my brain down, but being a lot more vocal about what I wanted. And so that was a bit of a rocky time. And then along came lockdown in 2020. And so sort of between the end of 2019 and March, I actually hired a coach in the UK to help me kind of scale some sort of business, like, because I was unfolding. I was unraveling, but I was also unfolding, kind of like, I'm a bit happier. I'm sort of standing up for what I want. I'm not going along with the crowd. I'm feeling okay with my decisions, versus thinking I had to do stuff. And so I worked with her very solidly. And then obviously, lockdown came. And lockdown was hectic for me. I had 3 children at home who I had to homeschool. And I'm not taking anything away from people who are both having to work from home. I mean, I don't know how that works.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Especially when you've got little ones. I mean, like they have earned top prize there.
Right.
And we had very strict lockdown in South Africa. It lessened a lot more than a lot of places very quickly, but in those early days, it was very, very strict. And I thought to myself, the only way I can actually get through being everything to everyone and being the rock and being available and trying to keep our heads whilst it's all going out crazy around there is if I actually look after myself first and actually start filling my cup up and doing what makes me feel free and happy. So I started getting up at 4:30 every day. I got up at 4:30 every day, started meditating, started reading books, very spiritual based books. And it's really difficult, especially if you're a very logical, analytical person, to understand what I'm going to say next. I do not know how I wrote the course that I wrote. All I know is that I was literally being guided by divine intervention. I picked up courses, that's a really good thing that I'd like to weave into this. And I was reading articles, I was writing articles. I had no knowledge of this. It was just coming. It was coming, but I was meditating and I was quietening down my mind a lot. So this was between like 4:30 and 7 every day. And I was very strict with myself. I'd meditate, I'd visualize, I'd do a bit of a course, and then I'd write. And then I'd go for a beautiful run with my dog under the stars, which in South Africa is not something you freely do. Okay.
But I'm sure it's beautiful.
Oh, I treasure it. I remember like running under the moon with him at 7 o'clock in the morning. It's like, this is with no traffic on the road. It was just magical. And suddenly I had a course where I was teaching people how to live from their truth. But like I say, I cannot explain to you how I did it. So yeah, it was a very magical time. And I have a lot of gratitude for lockdown. I don't necessarily think I'd want to necessarily go back to it, but I don't think, well, I don't know, but lots of gratitude for the time that was bestowed upon me to actually create this life and this business so I could actually live from my truth and teach others to do that as well.
So how have you always fed into your intuitive nature, or did this start really in 2017?
No, when I look back, I was always very intuitive, but I pushed it aside. And if you want to think spirituality or a bit witchy woo, it just made sense to me, but it doesn't really fit in with how the world is set up.
Right.
So you're a bit odd or a bit freakish or whatever. So I think, I mean, we talk about spiritually sort of coming out. And I think it was always there, and I definitely kind of dabbled, but I didn't really truly live from that space. No, not at all. You know, I got on with
So
what society tells you to do.
has it impacted your marriage living more in that space? Has it, I mean, I think that, okay, when I think about being intuitive, I was married before I got divorced, but moving forward, if I ever get married again, I know the importance of listening to my intuitive nature
Mm,
for my family and how great that can impact us and propel us into phenomena.
yeah.
And so I'm curious to know how that has worked for and benefited your family since really tapping in and accepting your intuitiveness.
I think when you live from a place of your truth, your vibration, your frequency, your energy is at a whole other level because you are happier. So everybody kind of gets to bask in that kind of golden light because you are happier inside. And so, you know, life is always a reflection of how you feel. So I think there's that, and there's the ripple effect because, you know, the children are not having a reactive mum who's not happy. My husband's happier because I'm not reactive or resentful or,
Mm.
you know, feeling like I can't get what I want, you know. So my growth has absolutely positively impacted my family. And also from a very deliberate and conscious level, I can then teach them. So when they are feeling emotions or they're thinking things, and I can talk to them and say, you are not your thoughts, you're not your emotions. You can learn, like, listen to how you feel, make decisions from that place. And so it's actually been, you know, a huge growth for them. So they have absolutely benefited from it, but it's not always easy. And when you are very, I guess, aware and conscious of who you are and your thoughts and your behavior, and sort of calling yourself back to yourself when you really do go a bit unconscious, it can be very frustrating being in that place in an unconscious world because
Mhm.
95% of the world
It's
do
not
not live like that. They are living
kind.
according to beliefs and thoughts and their ego and this and this and this. And so I think it takes a lot of what's the word, not necessarily power, but you have to have a lot of awareness not to get drawn in or calibrate back down to how
Mhm.
everybody else is. You need to have quite a lot of resilience, but a lot of acceptance and forgiveness towards when people are acting according to their perception. And you can sit there and go, but that's not true. And if only you saw the light. But
Right.
that's this, everyone is on their own journey. We
Mhm.
are sovereign beings. Our job is to live in alignment with who we really are, live in alignment with our higher self, reach our highest potential, live from a place of truth and love. And if other people come to your high vibe party, that's great. But, you know, I always say, this is my file and that's your file.
Right.
And sometimes they come, sometimes they don't. But when you're vibrating at a higher space, often they will kind of rise up to meet you. But everybody is on their path, and you can't sort of force, I guess, enlightenment onto anyone. It's about them reaching it when, or them understanding it at the right time for them
For
in their
them.
journey.
Because even if you plant those seeds of enlightenment, they won't always take root. And sometimes this is when you find yourself bumping heads because there will be people that will reject it so tough that it will make them kind of reject you because
Mm,
they are so attached to their
yeah.
belief system
Yes.
and what they have been conditioned to understand
Mm,
that it ruffles their literally
of
ruffles
course.
their feathers like
So the threat
literally.
is real.
Yeah, yeah. And they do feel threatened because for a lot of people changing their beliefs or questioning their beliefs, it ruins their whole life. Because I know when I got out the army, I got saved. or started going to church. I got saved in Iraq. But when I started that journey, it was not, I don't want to say it was profound, but it was a necessary step to understanding spirituality for me. However, when I became knowledgeable to the business of church, it started to break down all of the beliefs that are instilled in you from a place of church conditioning to make you do things that keep you in their threshold versus following your path of enlightenment to God and your soul purpose, because those are two different things. A lot of people think that if you go to church, you're going to tap into your purpose and that's it. That's going to church is the purpose. But your purpose is so much deeper than going to church. And what you learn there, it can be helpful, but it will never take you to where you need to be spiritually. And the first time I remember just really like, well, man, God, why'd you let me go here? Why'd you let me experience this? And almost a resentfulness to where, am I speaking in tongues? Is this real? Like everything else is fake. Why would you let me go through all this fake stuff? And it was so heartbreaking at the time, because it was like, well, I don't know anything now.
Yeah, it can like send you into a bit of a tailspin going, okay, so what now? But that's
what's
the thing,
real and
isn't
what's
it? It's
fake.
about do not challenge the beliefs. That's like it's religion, terrorist groups, cultural beliefs. It's the first thing is don't challenge them, because as soon as you cast doubt, then they don't have the power that they once had. And so, I have a great respect for people that live their life, whether it's from a religious perspective or with, beliefs that serve them. But it's about, I think, when you're spiritual, and I actually wrote a blog on how to be spiritual the other day. I think lots of people get very muddied between religion and spirituality. And I think it is a very different thing. And that's like when I talk about living from your truth, I always say, whether that's God, source, universe, the power, whatever you perceive that to be, it is a divine energy sitting inside of you, but how you perceive that is uniquely up to you.
Right. Exactly. I will
leave that alone.
Yeah, because that gives people room to be, experience, and grow for their own ability to see the truth that needs to be understood for them. And it's very sad because so many people get stuck in that and they never really experience a transformation to where they're actually happy, because a lot of people experience the facade of happiness. Like you said, a lot of people would have never known when I was
Nobody would
married
have known
that I was miserable.
Nobody.
I was miserably married because it is you have to be picture perfect. You have to smile and
you
act
ticked
like
all the
everything
boxes, and you're like, why am I not happy? Society said that if I did all this, I'd be happy.
Yes.
But I'm not. And it can throw you.
It really does throw you for a loop, because you're trying to figure out, well, I got the white picket fence, I got the kids, I got the dog, I got the house.
Nice car. Like, why am I bored and angry?
And it's so funny when you talked about you write in your book and you doing all of these things and not knowing how it happened, because when I first really stepped into the fullness of my intuition, I was writing on Instagram. I used to be on Instagram. I probably was averaging about 120 to 150 posts a day, but I don't really even know, like, when I try to figure out, like, how did I do that? Like, what was I doing? Because it was catchy. It was inspiring. It was like, I've heard lyrics and things that I've written in people's songs and all type of stuff, but I don't know how I was coming up with any of it. It was like,
I'm so happy to hear that, because people don't know, well, how did you do it? And I
don't know what I was
people
doing.
Don't like that answer.
I don't know how I was interpreting the things that I was interpreting, or like any of it. And I'm trying to like tap back into that space but that was a time period that will never come back again. So
yeah, and then it's almost like it stops again. You're like, oh, but you need, and I think that that's also knowing that when you go into that stress response, you can't tap into that innate creativity, because when you are in flow, when you are living consciously in alignment with who you are, you can create anything.
yeah,
Like, and it's not up to you to
seamless.
know how it has to look or why it has to be the way it is. You're just a vehicle. And I remember when I was writing my book, and my book coach said to me, you're just a vehicle. Your book is bigger than you. You're just a messenger. And I was like, yeah, it's my book. And I was like, it's got to look like this. And she was like, just let it flow. And it just flowed. And I was laughing to someone today saying, because we were talking about writing, and I said, I used to get up diligently at 5 o'clock in the morning before the kids got up and went to school, and I would go, right, this week I'm working on this chapter, this is all I'm doing. And I look back now, and I'm like you said, I don't know how I did it. I got up, switched this laptop on, and
it was there.
And I just did it. I didn't go any further ahead. It was like 16 chapters. I didn't think about chapter 15 when I was on chapter 2. I didn't even write it in order, because I was like, there was a couple of chapters where I had to be super technical and I was avoiding them. So I was like, oh, okay. But then one week I went, just do it, because you're not going to get this book out, So I think, again, knowing why you procrastinate and you're trying to keep yourself safe. So I did have to apply some logic to it, but I guess my point being is I don't know how I did it, and I look back and go, wow, because I signed up with my book coach in the April, and I had it with the editor in the October.
See, and when I wrote my first book, this is my first book. I wrote it in 3 months. It's 306 or 7 pages. And everybody's like, well, how did you write a book in 3 months? I have no clue.
I don't know. I don't know. I'll show you my book here. So my book's here. Obviously it's the wrong way around. It's authentic, aligned, and abundant. And I don't know. But I mean, a bit like you, I had the bare bones of it. 3 months
just
in.
filling it in. So I always give book writers and authors the advice that I give them is I always start my book from the end. And all of my books, every last one of them, I have 13 now. I have six of them are audiobooks, and they come with workbooks, because that's the only way you can publish an audiobook is to have the actual book. So I found the cheat code.
That's my dog.
It's okay. So let's create a workbook so that I don't have to transcribe all of the audiobook. So just that's a little tip.
And actually I was thinking, what's next for this? It needs like a companion. It needs like a how-to. It needs that. So I think that's next.
Create a little workbook that kind of breaks down.
So a few people have said it.
Yeah, so that process, even for those books, it took me almost 8 years to write the biggest one, the longest one, and it's probably about 9 to 12 hours long. But
wow.
In order for me to write the content that I write, I have to live it out. I have to experience it. So it comes from a place of know and not a place of wonder, because a lot of times people write books that they don't know truly that it's a place of wonder because it's something somebody told them versus, okay, I've experienced some stuff and now let me write from my experiences versus from, well, maybe, or
you sort of have to, people still want you to factually back it up. And I remember doing the referencing for my book, and it took me back to my university days, kind of like it was this painful process of referencing. I mean, I know you know what I'm talking about. But there was that part of me that just enjoyed it, very time consuming, but really enjoyed like having to put on different hats, like being the researcher, being the author, being the the experiencer of it. It was really amazing for me to be able to do that. So yeah, it's nice to be able to we could all write very fluffy books,
Right.
but we do have to, people
Give it a
want to,
foundation.
but is it really? How? They still want to know the how, but I
Yes.
think that's shifting. I think it's massively shifting in this world.
Yeah. So, what was the thing you had the hardest time getting free from, and how did you conquer that challenge?
What is the hardest thing I found getting free from? I'm going to say that deep-seated belief of not being enough.
How did you get through that challenge?
Sure. With that's a very South African thing to say, sorry. Masses of self-awareness, huge amounts of self-awareness. Stopping myself in my tracks when the thoughts would come up, and then the thoughts would create the emotions, or if I was feeling emotions about something else, suddenly like a million other thoughts would come in and I'd catastrophize. Of just being able to stop yourself in that split second before you go down that vortex of just going, I'm just not good enough. And we come from a world where we generally just don't think we're good enough. We come from a place of victimhood. We don't feel that we have this ability to create what we want. We feel like we're on the receiving end of life. So I think for me, and we work on our beliefs in our entire life, but it is like we're peeling back the layers of an onion, or you're chipping out a big boulder and bits come off and then a massive bit will come off. And I think just self-awearness is 75% of the way there. But our emotions and our beliefs are they're so ingrained, we're so conditioned. And in fact, we're even coded before we even come into the world. Dr. Bruce Lipton, he showed that isn't just nutrients going through to the baby in vitro, but it's also the mother's emotions. So we're pre-coded in the world. I mean, it's like,
listen, I noticed that probably when I was in the Army, where you would see how the mother was during the pregnancy, and then the baby would come out. You'd be like, well, why does the baby look so mean? Because the mama was probably mean in pregnancy. So the baby's going to come out just like that. And it just made so much sense. But recently here in Atlanta, there is a radio show host that had a surrogate. The surrogate ended up getting cancer while the baby was still inside her. And the mother was told by the doctor, of course, that everything would be fine. It wouldn't affect the child. But me knowing what you just said, I'm thinking like, no, if that child is in that womb, they share a blood supply. That child is sharing every single thing that
fear, that sadness, that resentment, or and I'm not saying every cancer victim has these experiences, but there is going to be a roller coaster of emotion. So absolutely, that is filtering through.
Listen.
And so if the mother didn't want a child, or it was a particularly difficult pregnancy, I just find it mind-blowing. So I have a lot of reverence for self-limiting beliefs. I kind of like, I see you. But as I've gone on my journey, it's been an interesting unfoldment for me, because I was like, I've got it sorted. I don't feel like this anymore. I'm so confident and I've created what I want. I'm so good. I don't need you to put me down. It's your judgment. Judgment's based on perception, whatever. And then now it's what I'm working on and I'll be very vulnerable and really share this with your listeners. I'm working on my anger towards the fact that I'd carted it around for so long that it's not mine. Now it's actually processed very quickly. I mentioned that I'm an energy healer as well, and a lot of the work that I do is energetic, and I'm trained in a very specific form of tapping. I'm sure many of your listeners know about EFT, emotional freedom technique, and I've been aware of EFT for about 10 years now, even back in nutritional therapy days. And I came across a lady who was very much in the spiritual world, intuitive, and she trained people in a very specific form of tapping. And so it's whereas EFT is about calming your brain down so you can take yourself back to neutral. The form of tapping I'm trained in not only does that, but it's actually a clearing mechanism. So it processes the entire emotion from start to finish, so then you are released from it. And I think for me, that has single-handedly been the most helpful modality for me getting underneath beliefs, emotions that don't serve me, thought processes that don't belong to me, just any nonsense that I want to feel released from, so I can go back to my truth. So in answer to your question, it's very much that.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kaci, not your typical clinical doctor. I am an ordained minister, but not your typical minister. I am also a certified life coach, love coach, sex coach, solution focused coach, transformation coach, and more. I have a whole lot of information that I would like to help you grow with. And I hope that soon I can help you be the best you that you can be. Confidence, spirituality, and purpose. That's wholeness, complete.
Those that not good enough, but being able to recognize that your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs, it's just pure energy. And if you've carted it around for so long, to have an actual tool that you can use on your body to release it, it's changed my life. It's absolutely changed my life. I would teach everyone to tap. If I could just get into schools, get into preschools, like that person's upset, you go and tap it out. Everyone would be so much happier.
Right. So we've talked about how everything has changed you and you are a more happier, pleasant, purposeful person. If
Definitely.
there was anything that you could change about your life, would you change it, and what would it be?
What would I change? Well, I think actually the one thing I would change is to be able to be more impactful to a greater amount of people. There's a lot of spiritual teachers out there. Okay, there's a lot. And then there's me coming in, like my sort of people, the clients I tend to attract tend to be corporate, highly driven, highly achieving women who are stuck in the hamster wheel of life and going, is this it? And life is so meaningless and I'm just not unfulfilled, but I'm making all the money and I'm going on holiday. Why am I not happy? If I could wave a magic wand and shake the world up, or even just like a percentage of the world up, that's actually what I would want to, that's what I want to do. That's what I'd want to change. That's what I march to every day.
That is good, because I definitely believe that the world needs to be shaken up a bit.
Yes.
Because we've been capsized for the most part into a certain way. And if it's not in this square box, this triangle, this rectangle, then it's wrong. Something is going on with you. And it is very, very strange when people are able to remove themselves from the conditioning, from all of the ruckus that we've been told to do without question, to believe without question, to think without question, to move without question. So for you to be able to help people to transform from the without question to with a better understanding, because without question will never allow you to fully understand, but with a better understanding, you can move and be and really experience true purposefulness and a life that you can be proud of, enjoy, and not
100%.
feel like you're on that hamster wheel, because life is literally like a hamster wheel or a rat race where you're just going and going and going to
days go by, the weeks go by.
No point of enjoyment, not fulfilling enjoyment. There's a difference between, okay, I'm having fun in this moment versus being fulfilled in this enjoyment. Like, man, this fulfillment that I feel,
that's very different.
Yes, this fulfillment that I feel from this moment is something that will leave me fulfilled for a lifetime versus, trivial things that it's cool right now. Like, When I first started on Instagram, I used to get so excited about the short things, the little things. And now it's like, okay, but after that excitement wears off, now what? Like, then what? Because that excitement
and
lasts
that's
for a
it.
while.
You have perfectly encapsulated how the world works. We are expecting the external world to give us what we want. Those peaks of joy, and we're like on a roller coaster the whole time. We're on a roller coaster, and I'll be happy when I get a promotion. I'll be happy when I've found a relationship. I'll be happy when I've lost weight. If when I get that, then I'll be X. But you can never be happy from that place because you've given your entire power away. It all starts with total and utter inner fulfillment, i.e., it starts with us making sure our vibe is high. We are coming from a fulfilled, happy place. And then we literally call in what we want. So we're no longer bothered by well, that was a nice experience, but I'm back down to here. We're up here anyway, and it's just an experience or an event that's coming along. And it's like, cool, okay, that was fun. I'm still happy. And I've found recently, I've almost gone to that
wait,
next level.
is that your dog? Is that your dog making that noise? Is he asleep?
Should I move them?
It's just a tad bit distracting because it's like he just
There's
came and they got louder just a tad bit. So I need you to speak up in this last little part.
Okay, so sorry.
It's okay. We're almost at the end.
Okay, what were we saying?
Shucks, I don't know. I think I
can. We were talking about being inner fulfilled and not expecting the external world to give you that happiness. And that is what's wrong with the world. I'll be happy when, okay, so you get the $1 million in the bank. You ain't gonna be happy. This is why we see these terrible situations when an actor kills themselves. And we're like, but they had everything.
Yes, and
they weren't. And that's the difference between success and fulfillment. You can have all the success in the world, but if you're not fulfilled, it's the greatest failure. And I think, people are so scared of failing. We all want to be accepted. We all want to feel connection. We all want to feel validation, but this is all from our egos. But we can actually step into our power, which, as we've said, it can feel very, very scary to do that. Suddenly go, well, actually, I'm going to go this way whilst you all do that. It can feel very scary, but when you realize it's just nonsense you're telling yourself because you're scared of judgment, because it just comes back down to your subconscious being a caveman brain thinking, if I go and do something different, I'm going to get chucked out of the tribe and therefore I will die. It's a protection mechanism. And so again, it's all that awareness going, why am I stopping myself? Is that true? Am I going to fail? Who cares if someone is judging me? It's based on what their view of the world is, which isn't true. It's very, very powerful.
So first off, it sounds like your dog said why just a few minutes ago. They sound like they're actually do this every day. They're talking.
But at least I'm very authentic.
Yes. So one of the last questions, what advice would you give to listeners in how to transform and move forward into their purest, most fulfilled self?
I think the easiest way of starting to live in alignment with who they are so they can live from a place of pure intention is to listen to how they feel feel into their bodies when they're making decisions, whether that's massive decisions, life-changing decisions, or like, what should I have for supper? Because your body will tell you everything you need to know if you choose to listen to it. And you've got very big energy centers, they've got a huge energy center in your gut, the solar plexus. If you actually listen to your gut, you'll know if the decision feels light and flowy and easy, it's right for you. Go and say yes. If it feels no, a bit off, a bit then that's a no. But so often we're living in that place because we're so scared of being rejected. We've got to keep up with what everybody else is doing. We have serious FOMO. Well, everyone else is doing that, so I should do that. Or I come from a family of accountants, so I have to go and be an accountant as well. but deep down you really just want to go and, I don't know, run a beach bar somewhere. It's never going to make you happy, but the more you start making those little decisions and according to how you feel, the more you'll listen to your truth, and the more you know that most of this in here, these limiting beliefs, the emotions and thoughts, they are not you. This is you.
Right.
And the more you live from that place, the more you'll create that happiness and that ease and that pure life you're looking for. Sorry for the barking.
So how do you how would you suggest people begin to live from their heart when in most societal norms it is said to not trust your heart and all of those things? How do you get over the conditioning of not trusting yourself and your heart?
Sure. I think that's really that's a difficult one, because people just do not know how to do this. They are not taught to do it. And I think it's about being brave. It's surrounding yourself with the right people. It's having people that are your cheerleaders. It's finding your tribe. And they, like I said before, they don't have to be in your village or your town or your city. It's about finding people that are all about living from their truth. So you have that kind of sense of community and that connection. But it is quite tough to do that, which is why most people will calibrate back down. And we often we'll calibrate up and down until we've learned the lessons. So even when things trigger us, even when things upset us and we think that we've gone spiraling off in the wrong direction, we're like, we've done so well. But actually that's the path, and we're gonna keep falling off the path until we find what's right for us. And you've got to keep getting back on, not being scared of failure and not being scared of success. That's also a scary thing for people. Well, what if I succeed? Well, maybe I'll be on my own because of that, because, people will be jealous or judge you for that reason. So I don't want to turn around when I'm 90 and go, oh, I didn't do this, this, and this. Because I thought I was going to upset that person, or what will they think? It's my life. We are designed to have a 10 out of 10 life, where we thrive, where we live in alignment with our soul, not this kind of 7 out of 10, enjoying the 2-week holiday here, right, the promotion here, the nice meal out here. That is not how it's meant to be.
So I know that you showed us your one book. Do you also have a podcast?
I don't have a podcast, but my website is diehillcoaching.com. I am on Facebook as Diehill Empowerment Coach. I also have a group on Facebook, which I'm very active in, which is the Up-Leveled Woman with Diehill. The Up-Leveled Woman is the name of my signature strategy. And so I work with clients one-on-one. I do private work, and I also have a self-study version of it, which is everything my clients get, my private clients, but it's done in a fashion that you are working on it in timeframes that work for you. But I think the difference with like online work is many online courses kind of like, there you go, off you go. And, 3 modules in, you're like making excuses not to do it. And like, oh, this feels horrible.
No accountability.
Why am I doing it? Oh, no. There is accountability. So I have Q&A groups. I make sure that people come in once a week. I reach out. I'm a very loving and empathetic person. I just want the best for people. And I just want to teach people how this all works. So whatever way they come to this work, I don't mind. It's got to be the right way. So read a book. Great. That can get out to the masses. You want to do a course and you can do it. Okay, I'll hold you accountable. But if you really want hand holding and you really actually need that accountability, which some people do. I employ a coach. I'm like, we go meet every Thursday and I have to do my homework. She will not coach me unless I do it. So it works for me. So it's about having the medium out there for people to be able to use in whatever way is best for them.
Well, that is amazing. You have a truly amazing story. Final question.
Thank you.
What is your definition of freedom?
eyes closed. My definition of freedom is to be able to live in alignment with who you truly are, so you can create a magnificent life and call in everything that you want, so you can live the life that has been bestowed by you. You are a divine creation. You can have everything you want, but it all starts with you living in alignment with who you authentically are. And it can take time, and it can take a while to peel back those layers, and stuff is going to come up. But when you do that, you'll create the life of freedom, because that's actually what we're all looking for, just freedom to be our true, authentic selves.
Perfect. Do you have any questions for me before we go?
Well, I guess I'd love to know, kind of in a nutshell, what your route to freedom was, because you've got such a fascinating background when you talked about Iraq and the different places you'd moved, and I was like, okay, tell me more. And you mentioned your divorce, so I'm like, okay, this is a very interesting person. So yeah, I'd love to know just a little bit about you.
So I ended up going to the Army after my mom tried to kill me, literally was choking me out, beating my head on the concrete. I think that was the first step to my journey to freedom. I had a lot of abandonment things going on where she just I don't know if she, like you said earlier, and I stood by this for a long time. I believe that if a mother doesn't want the child in the womb, then they will reflect that throughout the life of the child, because it was not something that they was happy about to begin with. So
Agreed.
I don't know if I was planned. I don't think that I was, but that kind of riddled into my upbringing and my childhood. So after I went to the Army, of course, I moved around a little bit. I ended up going to Korea. I was in Kansas for a while. Then from Kansas, went to Iraq. Ended up getting out of the military. I had a lifelong dream since I was a child to live in Atlanta, Georgia. So when I got out the Army, I literally moved here and met one of my favorite rappers from when I was a child, who had turned into a pastor. Started going to his church, was in his church for a very long time. Got married, moved around, helping them start a church. And then that's when I discovered, when I moved away from the original atmosphere to the new location, starting a church really shows you the business of church. That's when
As
I
you alluded to,
yeah, I got too close to the inner workings of how the business works. And that started making me go to God. And then I started studying psychology. And of course, psychology teaches you that religion is a mass mind control tool that keeps you in alignment for whatever the leaders of the place want you to be aligned with. So, and then I started questioning everything that I knew about religion. And I ended up reading the Bible like 6 times, got a very different understanding of what Christ is, who God is, and how the church kind of uses that to, I want to say, manipulate you, but every person, what I've learned is that
maybe
every
kind of like
steer you. Yeah, it's a manipulation, because okay, so what I'm saying is it's a manipulative tool, but the type of manipulation that is used, it is dependent upon the leader. And most leaders in churches are going off of what they've been told to say. They've only allowed to say
their personal beliefs. Absolutely, it's colored. Absolutely,
but it's based, and then there is like a storyline, in a sense, to where they can only talk about certain things. They only heavy on certain scriptures. So once I started understanding God from a different perspective, again, I questioned everything that I had learned, every experience that I had had. And then from there, I think I got married because church insisted on marriage being the next step. It was somebody that I hadn't really known that well. So leaving church was the beginning of the breakdown of the marriage, because in the marriage, he became what he thought that I wanted based on the belief system. Yeah. And so when we left out of that, he couldn't live up to what he thought that I wanted anymore, because there was no scale of, okay, if you be like this, then you'll be good for me. It was, okay, now are you going to do this, or what businesses we going to do? Because I have a very entrepreneurial mindset. So that began to break down the narrative of our
Sure.
relationship. And I'm like, okay, God, like, what is going on
Okay,
here?
okay, so that wasn't the plan, but okay, so what's next? But
And
again, it's like, go on.
No, what was you going to say?
No, it's a bit like kind of then, you know, when you can get to that point of surrender and not want to try and control it, that's a very powerful place to be. But again, we're not taught that. So it's like, but I thought you wanted me to do this. And so you sort of go into, again, a bit of a spiral.
And I believe, when I think about it now, because I definitely heard God lead me down that path, but I also believe that once you go too far from what God has purposed for you, another path will open up that you have to follow. And it may have some different curves and hills and valleys that you may not have needed to go through if you would have gone down a particular path, but now you're on this new path. And so eventually my marriage ended. I was very happy about it, but it almost happened as though it was planned. Like, my mom asked me, like, did you plan this? Like, it just happened so seamlessly. Like, everything,
because it just seemed so like fitting to where you wanted to be and what you were meant to be doing at that time.
Naturally unfolded. And yeah, it was a blessing. And so after that, I started with my ideals. The marriage had kind of stifled me in my growth as far as pursuing my purpose. So I was pretty miserable because I wasn't being purposeful. When I met him, I had wrote my first book. I was doing speaking engagements at a high school. I was doing all of these things, and he started questioning why I was the person that I was, or if I had the authority to do that because I was in therapy. So how are you helping other people? And it took me until the time where I was getting divorced. Like, right before that, my therapist was like, you know, I have a therapist. Like, I'm your therapist, but I have a therapist. So it's not wrong for you to have a therapist.
No one has got this perfect. Everyone, it's a very confused, sort of warped view that we should have it all sorted. There's nobody that has got
life is learning.
Perfect. I don't know what is that. There's no such thing.
You're right.
We're all perfectly imperfect.
Right. And the imperfections within us all make us individuals, because those are the things that set us apart from everybody else. Those are the things that shape our world and our minds and everything. So when it started to unravel, it was like, I literally got divorced in 20 days in Florida. That's just the way it works. So I was like, you know, good. I ended up moving into my new home. I built a home, moved into it. But then it was like, I have posts on social media right now that's like, I don't know what I'm doing with myself. And I'm a veteran.
Yeah, so you're like, what's actually happened? Yeah.
I have all of my life is really good at that point. But I felt like, I don't know what I'm doing with myself. Like, I'm lost.
Well, I think the sand's shifting so much. You're like, hold on, I need to know that I'm literally on the right path. But actually, at that moment, it's for you to kind of feel those emotions and just kind of sit through them, and then something will open up. It's almost like I always say, you're exactly where you're meant to be, even when it's really, really horrible and uncomfortable.
Yes. And so I started, like, it was like I would analyze. I'm study psychology, so I analyze people, places, and things. I analyze environments, and I'm an intuitive, which I was beginning to accept that portion of myself at that time. Because I had like a prophetic vibe on my life, but nobody wants to go around and saying, I'm a prophet. Like, it's a little weird.
It's like,
so
really?
As I started accepting things, I started coming up with theories. And it was like, man, I got this theory. Every time this happened, this happens. And then it was like, every day I was talking to a friend at the time that was like, man, I got this theory. Okay, I got a new theory. And it ended up turning into my book, Spiritual Human Behavior. But it took 8 years to actually get it all together, live it through, and all of that. And I'm thinking, like,
amazing.
My first book took 3 months. How in the world is it? So during the course of that, I'm like, oh my God, why is it
It was
taking
just
so long?
doing its thing. It was letting you prove some theories
Marinating.
and just going, actually, okay, it was never meant to be earlier, was it? It just
I don't,
was doing
I
its thing.
really don't think that it would have been right if I would have pushed it out before it was time. So all of those things really, and during this time, I'm writing 100 and something posts a day on Instagram.
I
So
don't know
I
how.
am, I'm feeding into people though. This is what it was. So I am intuitively linking with people, and
Yeah.
if I see something, I'm telling them theories. I'm telling them different ideals. Like, this is what I feel when I look at this, or this is how I feel when you say this. And it was helping people. I'm talking about big celebrities,
Uh-huh.
little celebrities, like
Yeah.
random. And then so it just became the natural thing to every day. Wake up, my radio was playing. I have a speaker in my house. So it was waking me up, playing music and everything. So everything was literally feeding into the course of who I was supposed to be, coming from who I was. And I ended up developing 4 faith books, spiritual human behavior, and another book. I just went through a whole lot, but the initial stages of my journey to freedom came after my divorce. Just really tapping in and learning myself, um, analyzing my own thoughts, my own picking patterns, understanding, okay, if I have a pattern of dating these type of men, what is it from my past that is making me feel like this type of man is okay or suitable for me? And then I started thinking about, okay, these are the men that I came up around. These are the men
This
that I
is what I'm
respect.
actually attracting in.
This is
Absolutely.
because I'm recycling what I've seen to be healthy. Well, it wasn't really healthy. What I seen to be presentable, what I deserved because of what I was surrounded with.
Yeah, but what was familiar to your nervous system? So we just recreating the future from our past, don't we? Because it feels safe, it's predictable. So why do I keep
No,
meeting the
it might
same
not be
men?
safe,
Oh,
not safe,
not
but
safe, not
predictable.
safe, but miserably uncomfortable in your comfort zone because
Yeah,
that's what you did.
yeah, 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 yeah. And it was like a controlled environment. So I began to step outside of that. I started looking and evaluating myself on a deeper level. And that really changed the course of my mindset. How I was talking now, I did get a little deep spiritually for a while. I'm seeing numbers everywhere. Just everything is just speaking to me. So
Yeah.
then I think I was almost too open. And now I'm in a place to where I need to open back up again. Because at that time I wasn't watching TV like that. It was a lot of things that I wasn't doing to crowd my mental space.
Yeah, like
But
keeping it very open, the airways are wide open, and then that can get very noisy too. You do need to live
very
day
noisy.
to day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And at the time I didn't realize it, but over time I started to understand there is noise even in silence. So now it would
Oh
led me
yes.
to reclaiming my time from Instagram, from
Mm.
people that knew that I was intuitive. So now they're trying to tap in. I used to tell people, pray and ask God to send me a sign if you want me to be able to help you out. And people would pray. And so I'm telling people how to tap into my energy. And so now I've stopped doing that. That's a part of my journey to freedom. I stopped
Yeah,
coaching
they can do
people
their
how to
thing.
get
I
into,
will.
because I was having dreams. I was just, it was very overwhelming. My intuitive
Yeah.
nature is very open and it's overwhelming. So like even when I dream things, and like and one of my biggest struggles has been having dreams of people dying and misfortune happening, and it
Yeah.
happening because you can't stop
Whew.
it. And I've learned that even if I tell people what I've seen, it doesn't necessarily stop what I've seen from happening, because what I've learned from my dreams is that there is something that happens in their life that changes the path and the course of their direction.
Yep.
And once they get on this path or course of direction, unless they have another life changing, altering moment mentally and spiritually, then they're going to go down this path regardless.
Of
And
course
it's a
they are.
matter of, once they meet this particular transition, will they transition into life or will they transition into death? And I can't control that. but there
And I
is,
think that's really important. It's like what I alluded to earlier. It's about, we are all individuals, and actually we have to take responsibility for ourselves. And yes, we want to save other people, but ultimately they are responsible for their own
for their
life.
own self.
And it's a bit like, you can lead a horse to water,
But you
but
cannot make
it's
them
actually,
drink.
and you can kind of give them a bit of a push, but they have to be ready. So, but interesting enough, like you were saying about those dreams and not being able to stop them, and I think we obviously we are scared of death, although I have to say I'm not particularly, because actually my best friend passed away very suddenly in August last year, and it was an absolutely awful time, but I feel very connected to her. I feel very much there is a whole other thing going on, and it's like, okay, so that's over there. And I wanted to say about those dreams, that unconsciousness coming through. I've been doing quite a lot of deep energy release work with a Reiki master, and she's also trained in a very ancient Egyptian way of releasing energy. Okay, now I am a fan of journaling, and I often do like a stream of consciousness journaling, a bit like your dreams. It's like you just sort of write whatever's coming out and you don't think about it. After a couple of sessions with her of releasing some energy, I experienced an incredible unconscious writing experience where I normally write about 2 pages. I wrote 10 pages, and I didn't know what the word is. It was just, some of it was gobbledygook. I wrote an entire page going, I am. It's live your truth, live your truth. It wasn't me writing it. It was totally God, source, universe, a higher power
Right.
coming through me and through my pen. And at the end of it, and my conscious part was like, when is this going to stop? Like, this is fascinating. Like, I was in the petri dish, a bit like you, like analyzing it. I was like, what is happening? And then suddenly the pen flew out of my hand. It went flying across the table, and I slumped back in my chair, and I was like, okay, I don't know what that was, but that was wonderful. And I think the reason I'm telling you that is because, when you were saying you were so open to it, like your dreams just became so vivid, and it became like a little bit like a bit dark. And it can be, if you're not kind of not safe, but have absolute faith that this is only for your greatest good. It's not there to hurt you in any capacity. It's so you live a life of truth and love. And actually, it's just trying to guide you versus, this is odd. Why am I having these terrible dreams? Or why is this writing coming out of me? It takes you to a place of, it takes your power back as well, is what I'm trying to say.
It is. So that is called, the term that I found in my research in the earlier days is called automatic writing. And I used to do a lot of that. I think that would have contributed to all of the writing that I was doing on Instagram, because it was not like
Definitely.
a conscious thing. It would be like, I might start out consciously, and then it would just continue. And I would be like, I don't even know why I'm writing this much or why I'm saying all this, but it's going to help somebody. And so
and it's amazing.
It truly is. But that is the totality, the short version, of course, of how I experienced my journey to freedom. Of course, freedom is something, and the journey of it is something that you have to intentionally put forth effort to continuously have daily, because you could easily get swarmed back into societal standards.
Absolutely.
The things that you have been freed from will always present themselves as an option to be to get back into. So it has been an amazing journey of even this, because last year I would have never, I was like, I don't interview people. I'm not interviewing. I like to be interviewed.
But you're so wonderful to talk to.
Yeah, I got tired of talking, and I'm like, okay, especially because I have like I said, I have 17 seasons of Speaking Freedom TV, the previous version of it, and I still got 4 more seasons to edit and upload. So I'm done. It's nothing else that I can say that I have not already previously said.
Truth. That is truth.
I hate
There's no
repeating
more. It's
myself.
actually
Yeah,
quite
yeah,
basic when we come down to it. Like,
yeah,
we
yeah,
could talk
yeah,
for hours, but actually you just need to live from here and ignore
yeah,
this. Oh.
yeah. And because I'm now putting it out there, after seeing so many people pass away from various reasons, I did not want to leave my legacy for my children to fulfill. So I started putting out the information that I was just holding on to. I was like forwarding content, and that's not helping anybody. So
Mm-mm.
instead of making myself be having to be always present there, and always typing and writing and helping everybody else, if I put the information out there in a very general way that addresses anybody's questions or forums, then I don't have to be present. It's there. You just have to go and find it. And
Absolutely. Otherwise, I mean, you just spread too thin. It's just not possible to do that.
right. And now my children are getting a little bit older. So it's time for me to kind of transition into an empty nesting type of lifestyle. So it went from being mommy all day, every day at their beck and call,
Yes.
to now it's
Mm-hmm.
time for me to kind of regain my self-awareness, my
Yes.
social life a little bit, and
Yes,
all of those
absolutely.
things. Because as a parent, I literally was like, okay, you guys are my priority. I'm gonna put y'all before
Yep.
everything else. But then it meant that it cut me off, gave me time to build and grow and become the phenomenal person that I've become. And then
Mm.
now, as they're getting ready to go into high school, my son starts high school in
Oh
August.
my
And
gosh.
then my daughter will start high school next year. So they don't really need me as much. They don't
It's a
really
it's
want
a different kind of need. My eldest daughter is nearly 15. It's a very different kind of need, and your role becomes this is where I think being able to step into your truth and your freedom from a day to day in your family, it really it grows you. You have to grow with it, because suddenly you are not in control of what's going on anymore. The tables have turned. You're kind of two steps behind, and for you to actually maintain your sort of presence and coming from a place of love and not being triggered, or when you are triggered, knowing what to do about it, and teaching them good morals, good values, and what to do, in certain situations. It's a whole other level of being
Listen,
needed. Very, very different.
that and then finding yourself, because when you're a parent of small children, you become a different person than who you are outside of
Definitely.
having children. And
Definitely.
definitely on top of finding myself after divorce, then having to adjusting my mind to being a single parent, and then now
Absolutely.
adjusting to, okay, you're a single parent, but guess what, girl, it is time to live a little now.
Look who's coming back out again.
Yes, I'm outside.
Oh yeah.
That's a whole different type of transition, and I truly appreciate every stage of it,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
as a child, I didn't experience a mother who gave her all to me. So
Yeah.
my
So yeah,
children,
it could have gone one of two ways for you. You could have gone and recreated the same pattern, or you could go, actually, I'm going to be the opposite of that. I'm going to be available, present, loving, and all the other stuff.
and it's so crazy, because that's literally one of the theories in my book. It's either you're exactly like your parents and your examples, or you're complete opposite. And it's not
Yeah.
like a one size fit all. It can be in sections and compartments of where you base your life. And
True.
just that in itself is, because a lot of
It
people
blows
think,
your mind.
yeah, because a lot of people don't realize either you're mimicking what you saw or you're creating something different. Now, when you create something different, it's either going to be better or worse, because you can create something different. If your mother was always present, because I've seen people where their mothers were always there, and then they abandon their children. They don't want to be around their kids like that. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
damn, why did you have kids if you don't want to be
Yeah.
around them? Like,
True.
I've learned so much about myself from having children. It is baffling.
Oh
Like
my gosh.
the
And it
love, the
brings up the
support.
wounding that we have
Oh
from
my God.
our pasts, and but it's a gift on so many levels.
It really
And
is.
knowing who they are as individuals, and not not pushing your beliefs, your conditioning, your thoughts, your programming onto them, so they can actually be their true selves,
They're
or like
while
putting
still
your
trying
nonsense
to
onto them. You're not feeling good enough, so then you're like, you should try harder. Oh no, that's actually my stuff, that's not your stuff, sorry. But that's when you're very, very conscious
on
as
top
well.
of still trying to make sure that they have morals and boundaries, and because there's so many outside influences that will just pour onto them all these different things. So it is the greatest balancing act in the world is being a parent and still being
There's
yourself.
no manual.
No manual.
Absolutely.
And it's really no manual because every child is different. It's not because there isn't of course I could write a book that says do this, and this. But if you have
and
a child that's not like mine, then none of those things will work. It's almost like creating a business. You can get business coaching from anybody, but just because that business strategy and technique work for them, you can have the same exact business. It does not mean it's going to work for you. It's like your soul journey. Everybody is individually different, and every business, every child, everything is so individualized that the group think method doesn't work.
Totally. We are, and I love how you brought that back. Absolutely. We are all so unique, and we're just wanting to be able to live from who we truly are. And when you can live from that place, you are free, and you can forgive, and you can move on from the past. And wow, if the world stepped into that way of being, wow, the world would be a very different place. Hey,
it definitely would. Well, everybody, that is the Journey to Freedom show for today. Di, I really appreciate you being on here. It's always great to conversate with like minds and to share this blessing of your gift with the world.
Thank you so much. I absolutely loved chatting to you and connecting with you. It's been a wonderful experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, everybody. Until next time, this has been Speaking Freedom TV.
Hi, I'm Kaci, Dr. Kaci. Welcome to Speaking Freedom. We are happy to have you, and we hope that we are able to help you in every way possible. Have a good evening. If you've enjoyed this video, like, share, subscribe, and turn on your notifications. New episode every Friday.